Hey there and welcome back to my YouTube chess channel where we together explore the exciting chess world. I hope that you're feeling great because today's topic is a crazy opening, or to be more specific, the Hungarian Opening, which starts with the move pawn to g3, also known as the Benko Opening or the King's Fianchetto Opening or the Bileg Opening, but also the Barca Opening. So how you can see, there's many different names and many ways how to call it, but I prefer just the Hungarian Opening. So in this video I will show and explain you all of the different variations and main lines of this opening, because after pawn to g3, black can answer with lots of different moves, like for example pawn to e5, pawn to d5, or also knight to f6. But I'll also explain you some sidelines like pawn to g6 that all go after the Benko Opening. So this move is even a completely similar move to our pawn to g3 key move. But before we jump right into it, the Hungarian Opening is the 5th most popular initial move in the whole game of chess, after obviously pawn to e4, pawn to d4, knight to f3, or pawn to c4 with the English Opening. So this move, pawn to g3, doesn't immediately influence and occupy the center of the chessboard, which is very important, but white prepares to fianchetto his bishop in the following moves, or move on g2 like this. So the hyper-modern school of opening theory and chess theory, most influential in the 1920s and 30s, was all about controlling the center of the chessboard with pieces that are not occupying the center, but with pieces from a distance, rather than occupying it with pawns like after the move pawn to e4 or d4. And exactly this is what you will see in the Benko Opening, for which you are now already ready for. By the way, if you don't want to miss anything new on this YouTube channel, any more videos or shorts, feel free to subscribe and activate the announcement bell. Thank you very much. So the most played and most famous answer on the key move is pawn to e5 with the Benko Opening. Now you can, of course, how I've just said, finish the idea of your initial and first move and fianchetto instantly your bishop in this position on g2. But you can also play different moves, like for example pawn to d3, knight to f3 is played a lot, or also the very strange looking move pawn to c4, by the engine, so by the computer, even seen as the best move in this whole position. So what makes up the Hungarian Opening is that you can very fast and with ease castle kingside, so do the short castling. For example, after the fianchetto of your bishop, you can on the following move adapt to the Barca system, which is also one of the names that I have called the Hungarian Opening in the beginning of this video. So play knight to f3, and here you can see that you can already on the 4th move of the game, so pretty much at the beginning, just in the development, already do the short castling in this position. But let's continue with an even more interesting line of the Benko Opening, aka also known as the Hungarian Opening. I especially like this variation, or to be more specific, the Botvinnik-System of the English Opening, because of the first two starting moves. So on pawn to g3, black answers with a similar move pawn to g6, and on bishop to g2, the fianchetto, black also fianchettos his bishop on g7. So how I've just already teasered a bit, by this black enters the hyper-modern fianchetto, and I will show you now the system in the English Opening, which is also called the Botvinnik-System. But you're probably asking yourself right now, well, where can I find on this chessboard an English Opening? But actually I have an even better answer, because now the game continues with pawn to c4 followed by pawn to e5. Now you have it on the chessboard, the English Opening. By the way, if you are also interested in this very interesting and stunning opening, feel free to check out after you have finished watching this video, the video linked in the video description, also here above me in the info box, where I have shown and explained you the main lines of the English Opening. Thank you. But let's continue with this very interesting Botvinnik system. Here we now play knight to c3, on which black answers with the move pawn to d6, also opening up the diagonal for their very strong queen's bishop like this. And now we become the ones on the chessboard who are initiating and mirroring our opponent's moves, because now we continue with pawn to d3, a similar move to the move that our opponent has just played. So now the player who plays the black chess pieces in this game plays pawn to f5, building up this very strong looking pawn structure like this. But of course we won't just give up the center without fighting for it. So we play pawn to e4. And here the game continues now with lots of knight developments. Black plays knight to f6, we play knight to e2, and they develop their knight here on c6. So what is very interesting about this line of the Hungarian opening, or to be more specific, also the English opening, because we have transposed just from the Hungarian opening into the English opening, and secondly, till move 9, that is now on the chessboard, we have not captured a single opponent's chess piece. Now let's move on with black's second most played answer on your main move with pawn to g3. After they have answered with pawn to d5, lots of different variations and interesting lines can continue in the game, like for example the very interesting Yugoslav-Variation of the King's Indian attack. Here after we have fianchettoed our bishop on g2, also attacking the black pawn here on d5, they defended with knight to f6, on which we play knight to f3, the key or also called the main move to fulfill the already announced before in this video, the Botvinnik-System. So after black has defended his pawn on d5, now with the third chess piece with pawn to c6, he's now defending it with this pawn, with his queen on d8, and also with his knight. We obviously do the short casting in this position, bringing our king here in the corner of the chessboard behind this very strong structure into the safety. Now black answers with with bishop to g4, but we just act like we don't care about the attack on our knight here on f3, and we just play pawn to d3, also opening up the diagonal for our queen's bishop here like this. So black just plays knight to d6, on which we answer with a similar move, knight to d7, knight to d2, and like this we can now continue developing. Most likely both players just play pawn to e5 and e4 and e5 of course, facing their chess pieces and pawns here in the center of the chessboard against each other. So this was the done already with this video, in which I have shown you 3 main lines and very interesting lines of the Hungarian opening, also known as the Benko Opening, the Botvinnik-System, or also the Benko Opening. So I really hope that you liked this video. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, leave a like, and don't forget to share this video with your friends and players that you know who play chess. Till next time, bye!